Will the Dems ever win again? As long as they keep hating men. Our video of the day is a 2-for-1 man haters special. First up, Michelle trashes dudes while urging women to act more like them.
They're always hedging, because in the back of our minds, we weren't raised with the certainty of maleness that, kind of the confidence that young men in their 30s have, which they haven't earned. They just have it.
It's something you work at, I feel not confident sometimes, and then I work on it and I can feel more confident, but nobody's really confident.
Yeah.
Everybody's insecure.
Everybody's
at some point, nobody wakes up and is like, unless you're like a true stone cold psychopath at any age, really.
Yeah.
And I think, what she's talking about is maybe there are the men out there that like, women, when you get older, you're gross, like, ew. But like, those are men who are not having sex with anyone.
Yeah.
And I truly do not care about the opinions of those men, and I have a lot less money than she does.
Yeah.
So really, you kind of should just...
Greg Gutfeld comes swinging with jokes, sharper than Michelle Obama's fancy heels, and Kat Timpf follows up like a funny wrecking ball in heels of her own. Together, they rip through the perfect image of Michelle's public personality turning healthy, eating speeches and feel-good fluff into comedy gold. This isn't a tribute. It's a no-mercy takedown of the most glamorous First Lady brand in history. When Greg starts the roast, even Michelle's carefully planned legacy isn't safe from the burn.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind. Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
It also represents Democrats continuing to be out of touch with the same group of people that voted for Trump, which is why they lost. Some people are feeling like there's no hope because of Donald Trump going to be the president, but some people are feeling hope for the first time in a long time. A lot of people in those flyover states who haven't had their concerns addressed by President Obama and the administration before that. So sure, some people are feeling hopeless, but to say all Americans, like you were saying, this continues, Democrats are going to keep...
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon. Michelle Obama's PR machine has been running so long, it's probably old enough for retirement benefits. At this point, it's not even a story. It's a rerun. She walks into every cultural conversation like she's the wise aunt of America, here to hand you a gluten-free cookie and teach you about your hidden bias. She's built a brand out of giving dirty looks to America like it's her teenage daughter coming home 10 minutes late.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
Greg Gutfeld comes in swinging like a wrecking ball dressed in a fancy suit, easily tearing down the fairy tale around Michelle's so-called political neutrality. Neutral, the woman practically moonwalks into every liberal talking point like she's trying out for a left-wing halftime show. Kat Timpf, drinking sarcasm like it's cold coffee, turns every one of Michelle's inspirational moments into comedy gold. Her ability to show hypocrisy with a smile that says, "Bless your heart," is almost to perfect.
Have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump.
Michelle once pretended to not want to be in politics like a cat pretends to hate attention. Meanwhile, purring all the way to sold-out stadiums where tickets cost more than a month's rent in the very neighborhoods she claims to represent. Her book tours looked less like a book launch and more like the Rolling Stones got politically woke and decided to start handing out passive-aggressive life advice. No one's saying she can't write a book, but maybe if you're going to name it something deep, it shouldn't read like a high school valedictorian speech edited by Instagram.
But Michelle Obama says the deportations keep her up at night, so maybe there is some truth to Barack's birth certificate. And way to tip off Trump. Oh, please, I'm really worried about these deportations. I mean, just get a divorce already. Don't try to get him deported. There's a lot of inflation going on here. Deporting illegal immigrants isn't the same.
She talks about hardships like someone remembering a slightly disappointing luxury vacation. When Michelle Obama says she knows struggle, what she means is she once had to stay at a 4-star hotel because the 5-star suite was overbooked. Her idea of beating hard times is wearing flat shoes to an inauguration. Kat Timpf could hardly contain herself, noting how Michelle's personal stories are just rich people problems wrapped in TED Talk energy.
Truly. She says women are invisible. Which women is she talking about? Oh, I see her women in commercials, in TV shows. They're all over the place and they're all yelling at everybody, telling them, I don't want to.
She has some serious issues. She needs to go to therapy.
Yes.
And maybe stop doing radio just altogether, because we don't want to hear her speak. But she talks about, how young men were confident, which makes sense because she seems like a pretty confident person growing up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you tell me. But I will say this, and I do believe she's actually biological female. She just plays the role of man really well.
Greg Gutfeld isn't even subtle. He steamrolls through her carefully made image with the skill of a political bulldozer. The fitness obsession, for example. Sure, promoting health is good, but when Michelle launched her fitness program, it felt less about helping kids and more about publicly shaming school lunches until they looked like prison food. Remember when she thought carrots and quinoa were going to change inner-city dropout rates? Her speeches are emotional roller coasters that start with when they go low and end with a moral superiority complex so big it needs its own Secret Service detail. And let's not ignore how Michelle constantly dips into politics, then retreats, like she accidentally wandered into the wrong Zoom meeting. One moment she's giving you policy hints with a raised eyebrow. The next she's pretending she's just here for book clubs and kale chips.
From our minds, we weren't raised with the certainty of maleness that, kind of the confidence that young men in their 30s have, which they haven't earned, they just have it. We don't start feeling that and owning that until our 50s and 60s, at a time when we start to be treated as invisible in society.
So true. And it reminds me of my new book, Women Are Invisible at Age 50, and I couldn't be happier.
Greg laughed at how Michelle's idea of staying out of politics involves guest starring in every politically charged documentary series on Netflix with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Michelle Obama's skill for self-promotion is so intense, it's amazing she hasn't launched her own constellation yet. She managed to convince people that being real means being followed by a glam squad and a film crew, while making muffins with underprivileged youth for background footage. Kat Timpf pointed out how every candid Michelle moment seems as planned as a Broadway finale, and her influence on the media absolutely suffocating. She walks onto a late-night show, and suddenly every host becomes a starstruck high schooler trying not to fangirl too hard. She says something mildly smart, and suddenly it's carved into digital marble like she's Play-Doh in stilettos. It's the only time silence isn't golden, and the headlines will still declare it powerful and brave. Meanwhile, actual brave people are out here working night shifts, not charging six figures for motivational speeches at fancy universities, where tuition costs more than a small country's GDP.
Michelle thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better.
And the podcast, the podcast. If you haven't listened to it, congratulations. You've saved yourself the hearing equivalent of a lukewarm motivational calendar. Michelle's podcast feels like being gently scolded by a guidance counselor who thinks she's your best friend. Kat said it best. Every episode sounds like someone trying to sell you an inspirational poster, even if the topic is supply chains or congressional gridlock. But Michelle's most magical feat, convincing millions that she's just like them, as if any normal person takes a private jet to a climate change conference while tweeting about environmental justice from an iPhone 14 Pro Max. Her environmental credibility is as real as her claims of political detachment. When Michelle Obama says she's one of us, it's like a billionaire saying they remember what ramen tastes like. Cute, but no one's buying it. Greg doesn't let up. He dives into Michelle's influence over Hollywood, which is like handing a megaphone to someone already yelling into a stadium PA system. The Obamas signed a deal with Netflix so bloated, it probably has its own congressional oversight. Now Michelle's essentially greenlighting her own legacy in documentary form, where even her childhood is reimagined with the cinematic drama of a Christopher Nolan film. What's next? Michelle as a Marvel superhero.
Kamala has shown her allegiance to this nation, not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service and always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others She understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth.
Generational wealth. Something good that now in the prism of liberal politics is very bad.
Kat brings it home by showing how Michelle's so-called grace often serves as a sneaky horse for aggressive condescension. The tone is always the same, part polished pageant queen, part disappointed parent, all dipped in a syrupy coating of media. Trained precision. She smiles while telling half the country that they're basically failing as human beings and somehow gets applause for it. And there's this fantasy that she's somehow separate from the political machine her husband ran like a startup unicorn. Michelle's brand has become a nostalgic security blanket for the progressive elite. She's like a liberal Disney character brought to life, complete with a voiceover and a softly lit filter. Meanwhile, back in reality, the press practically throws confetti. You'd think she just solved world hunger instead of sharing her favorite recipes for healthy snacks that no child in history has ever enjoyed. And no one dares question her because that would be like poking a hornet's nest built entirely out of hashtags and viral quotes.
Like a liberal groundhog, Obama's popping up to warn us about how Trump's turning into a dictator.
We start drifting into something that is not consistent with American democracy. It is consistent with autocracies. We're not there yet, completely. But I think that we are dangerously close to normalizing.
Michelle's fashion choices even get their own news cycles. The woman could wear a paper bag and within minutes it would be sold out at Nordstrom with a historic label slapped on it. Kat pointed out how Michelle's outfit reviews often sound like military briefings carefully broken down, overanalyzed, and treated like they contain secret foreign policy messages. She wore a belt. It wasn't a diplomatic gesture. Calm down. Greg couldn't resist circling back to Michelle's obsession with moral high ground. She weaponizes virtue like it's a fitness challenge. Encouraging people to rise above as long as they're rising on a Peloton, she approved. She acts like she's the designated driver of America's ethical compass. And yet, she's swerving into every cultural debate with the intensity of a cable news anchor during ratings week. Kat cut even deeper, making fun of the self-help aura that Michelle would be on the Wheaties box. And still, she positions herself as somehow outside the system she actively helped create and continues to exploit.
Men can't name masculine Democrats. So, Congresswoman, according to a new study by a think tank, young men struggle to name any masculine Democrat leaders besides Barack Obama, saying it's the Republican Party that best represents men's interests. Are you surprised by this? Where did the Dems go wrong?
The Michelle mythology thrives because people have confused personal polish with integrity. She's mastered the art of appearing thoughtful while saying very little. It's like watching a beautiful fountain that runs on recycled water. It looks good, but it's just the same thing being pumped through a decorative pipe. Michelle's greatest sleight of hand, making influence look like innocence while shaping political discourse with more precision than most senators. She hides behind school speeches and lifestyle tips. It's a soft tyranny of sentiment delivered, with the poise of someone who knows no one will dare push back, not because she's right, but because she's been anointed. Greg and Kat didn't just roast her. They peeled back the glittered packaging. What's left isn't a monster. It's worse. It's a performance pretending to be real. Michelle doesn't need a platform. She owns the whole stage. And every time someone applauds her courage, it's like cheering for a magician who just pulled a rabbit out of a hat you paid for. This roast doesn't end with a mic drop. It ends with a mirror held up to a public figure who's made a fortune pretending. She's not part of the system while expertly playing it better than anyone else in the room.
Meanwhile, here's former First Lady Michelle Obama last night.
Kamala has shown her allegiance to this nation, not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service and always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others. She understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing.
And somehow the illusion still holds for many, but not here. Because when the smoke clears and the applause fades, Michelle Obama's legacy isn't one of untouchable greatness. It's a masterclass in branding politics and emotional manipulation, dressed up as empathy, and guess what? There's more where that came from. Every time Michelle casually strolls back into the spotlight, It's less about leadership and more about reminding the world she's still the crowned queen of curated relevance. The woman has managed to turn walking down a hallway into a feminist manifesto while sipping tea, like it contains classified wisdom, and people eat it up like she's Moses descending from Mount Starbucks with fresh commandments written in soy foam. But here's the stunner. When you strip away the speeches, the soft lighting, and the perfectly timed anecdotes, what's left isn't greatness. It's a brand, and brands fade. The applause will stop eventually. The pedestal will crack.